You don't need a luxury kitchen to prepare gourmet meals. I wanted a little on the sticky side. With a modest kitchen and some standard equipment, you can cook food that you would be proud to serve. There is my shrimp. All you need is a few helpful kitchen techniques, the ability to follow a recipe, a passion for food, and a fascination with cooking. Just follow along the rib cage. That is so good. My name is Dennis. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. The weather forecast is predicting possible rain showers by the end of this week, and I'm thinking this might be my last opportunity this season to enjoy soup weather, because this is Southern California. Starting around April, May, it doesn't rain anymore until October, November. And one of the fans of my YouTube channel recommended that I try making mulligatawny soup. Mulligatawny soup. It comes from the Tamil language. I did some research. The Tamil language in southern India, that's also the origin of this soup. And just to give you a brief description of what this soup is, it is basically a chicken and vegetable soup that is seasoned with curry powder. It's actually very simple to make. I'm not sure how it's going to taste, but I think it's worth trying. So let's make this mulligatawny soup today. The first thing I need to do is prep my vegetables here. I have a couple of stalks of celery. And these are kind of large, but I like celery in soup, so I'm going to go with these as is. I'm cutting them first into long strips. Like so. All right. Cut them in half once, and then I'm just going to chop these into a nice little dice. Kind of a soup-sized dice rather than, say, a big dice for stew. Okay, so there's my celery diced. Put that in the bowl. You need one medium to large carrot. They had little tiny carrots at the grocery store. So I decided I'm going to use the little ones. Maybe they'll be sweeter and taste nicer. And I think they'll look nicer just cut up into little circles like that in my soup. Okay, so there's my carrots. Move that into my bowl. And the last thing I need is about 1/4 of a large or medium onion. That pleases me because I don't like foods that require a lot of onion. So I'm going to cut this down and just use 1/4 of this. There we are. And as I always do, I have my own way of chopping onions. I don't do it the way the chefs do it on TV. They cut down through it like this, and then they cut toward their fingers. That drives me nuts. I don't like drawing a knife toward my fingers. One of the fans of the website commented recently, the YouTube channel rather, commented recently that his mother, he learned to cook at his mother's elbow, and she always taught him, never cut toward your hands. Always cut down toward the cutting board. All right, there are my vegetables chopped. Now I need to saute these a little bit to sweat them. I've got a large cooking pot here on the stove. If you see that fluted edge around here, you'll recognize that that's from a pressure cooker. I put a couple tablespoons of pure olive oil in there. And I'm going to add to that a little bit of clarified butter that I melted. Okay, this was a made in China POS pressure cooker, and so it was actually dangerous to use. And so I dismantled the pressure cooker part and I just use it as a large soup pot, and it does very well for that. Okay, so I want to sweat these vegetables over medium heat for about a minute, and that'll extract some of the flavor from those to get into my soup. So my vegetables now have been sweating here for about a minute, minute and a half. I'm going to add to this 1.5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of curry powder. If you like things with a lot of spice in it, you could increase that. And then for color, I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. And then get that all stirred up. And I'm going to cook this for 4 or 5 minutes. Again, this is over medium heat. If I think that's cooking too much, I'll reduce that heat down to medium low. So these have been cooking now for about 5 minutes. I did reduce that heat to medium low as the spice started to stick to the bottom of that pan. And now I'm adding 4 cups, which is about 950 milliliters of chicken stock. This is my homemade stock. I make a lot of chicken stock and I use mostly for soups, but you can use the chicken broth they sell at the store. And I'm raising the heat now under my pan up to medium high. And I want to bring this to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, I'm going to reduce the heat to low and just gently simmer this for 30 minutes. My soup has about 10 minutes more to go. So I want to cube up a chicken breast here. I switched to my chicken board. And what I want to do is I want to slice this chicken up first before I cube it, because it'll make it easier to cut into little cubes. So cut this into 3 slices and then cut the long way. Into long pieces like I did my celery. This is a little bit easier to do if the chicken breast is partially frozen. This is one large, skinless, obviously, and boneless chicken breast. Then I'm going to cut across and cut these in kind of medium cubes. I don't want them real large like I would for a stew, but I want them to be noticeable in this soup. It's like you have some like chicken noodle soup and the chicken is these tiny little cubes that almost disappear into the soup. I'm trying to avoid that. I want to be able to see the chicken. Okay, just about done here. Getting down to the end. If you're hearing construction outside, they're doing some trenching over on the side, on the street, alongside the trailer park. So now this is ready to go into my soup. I'm going to clean up my board here, put this away, and then switch back to my regular cutting board. This recipe also calls for half of an apple, peeled and chopped. I peeled it already to make it a little bit easier. And then you want to core this. I have an old spoon here that was used by somebody for cooking for many years, and this edge is all sharp now. It's a silver spoon, and it's great for jobs like this. All right, this other half, that's snacks. Rinsing my knife there. Okay, and then I want to just cut this like that, and then take these pieces and cube them like that. That's good enough. It'll add a little bit of sweetness to my soup. Unusual, I think, for apple in soup, but there it is. So there is my soup there, still simmering after 30 minutes. I'm going to add to that my half apple. And this is 1/4 cup, or about 50 grams of white rice. Now, if you wanted to use brown rice, you could, but brown rice takes longer to cook. So add the brown rice when you add the stock, because brown rice is going to cook in about 45 minutes. White rice will cook in 15 minutes. There's my chicken breast that I cubed up. I'm going to raise my heat up to bring this back up to a boil, because that's going to cool down. And then what I did was I tied maybe half a dozen fresh thyme sprigs there. I'm going to cook that in my soup. I have my string hanging out here so that I can easily remove that thyme when my soup is done. I want to cook this now for about 15-16 more minutes once it comes up to a boil. What I'm really interested in doing is cooking that rice. That chicken should cook quickly because it's cubed. So there now is my soup. After about 16-17 minutes of cooking, that rice should be tender. What I do want to do at this point, though, is take out my thyme. I'm just shaking it to shake off any leaves that want to fall into my soup, because there's nothing wrong with having a few thyme leaves in there. Now, I know that's going to need salt and pepper, so I'm going to grind some pepper in there, freshly ground black pepper, and add a good pinch of salt. I make my chicken stock without salt, so that's why I know that's going to need salt. And then I have a little tasting bowl here. We'll taste that for salt. A little bit more. And that little bit that I tasted was actually quite good. I was a little bit nervous about the curry in this, afraid that it might be too strong of a flavor, but it's actually very mild, even delicate. Oh, that is just wonderful. That is a very delicious, wonderfully flavored soup. And this, I gotta tell you, for guests it would be a bit of a surprise, because those little white chunks in there, they're going to expect potato. They should be surprised when they taste the sweetness of apple. Now, you could at this point turn the heat off, let this cool down, and chill it until the next day if you wanted to make this in advance. I'm going to finish this off now. There is no one classic recipe for this soup. From what I could see, there were a lot of variations, and one of the variations was to add half of a cup, 120 milliliters of heavy cream to make like a cream soup. Stir that in. I'm going to just bring this back up to temperature for serving, because that cream was cold from the refrigerator, and then that soup will be ready to eat. So now my soup here is ready to plate. And that looks so wonderful. Get a little bit more broth in there. And there is my mulligatawny soup. The last step is to see how good that tastes. Okay, I'm ready to taste my soup here. And what I'm most curious about is, what will this apple taste like in my soup? Well, let's find out. Wow, a little bit sweet, tastes like apple. Quite good. Get some of my vegetable here. Oh yeah, cooked to perfection, and I want to taste my chicken. That is a delicious but mild soup. It's a little early for lunch, but excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy my mulligatawny soup. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.